Hey, everybody out there. This is Sam Jones with Tennis Express. We're excited to welcome you to another Q&A. So here we go. So let's invite our guest in from Dunlop. Let's punch him up here. All right, again, hey everybody, this is Sam Jones, one of the content team members at Tennis Express that I do some playtesting for them as well. We're glad to have you at another one of our Friday Q&A series, just trying to answer questions that the consumers have about new products and information about upcoming products that are going to be coming out. Today we have a very special guest with us. He is going to be joining us shortly. So let's see if I can get him on. Again, just go ahead and start asking some questions today. This must be Keith.
Hey.
Keith, hello. I'm Sam with Tennis Express. It's very nice of you to join us on one of our Friday Q&As.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're really excited. I wanted to briefly announce that today the new Dunlop FX Series rackets are in stock at Tennis Express, and they're shipping today. That's right. He's holding one up right now, everybody, the beautiful black and blue. So Keith, how long have you been with, so everybody, just so you know, Keith is the sales and marketing coordinator for Dunlop Sports here in the United States. He is super knowledgeable about all things Dunlop, and so we're going to pick his brain about the new FX rackets and a few other topics. So if you're watching, go ahead and ask some questions, and then we'll try to get to them shortly. I've got a few sort of pre-prepared questions just to try to inform our customers about Dunlop Sports a little bit. So Keith, just real quickly, how long have you been at Dunlop?
I've been with Dunlop for about 18 months now.
Nice.
Yeah, prior to joining the Dunlop team, I managed a tennis shop, actually a local tennis shop. We're located in the upstate of South Carolina.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Now, are you like the stuff that you do for Dunlop, is it tennis exclusive? Do you do any other racket sports, or is it mainly tennis?
You know, I know more about tennis than squash and padel and badminton. I'm trying to learn about those other sports, but we do have an inside sales manager who specializes in squash and padel and badminton.
Okay. Yeah, I'm finding myself learning about squash and trying to pick up some padel and learn about all these different racket sports that are coming. But it's good.
Yeah.
It's good for business. So why I have you here today, the main thing is let's kind of get right into it. So there's this new line of rackets from Dunlop, the FX series, to go along with the CX series that's used by Kevin Anderson and a few touring pros, and then I think it was January, the SX series, kind of the green and black motif. So talk to us a little bit about the Dunlop FX series rackets.
So, you know, you mentioned CX and the SX. The CX is our control racket. The SX is more spin, and the FX is for power. So think force.
Okay.
Yes. So, cool. Yeah, there are 5 rackets in the line. There's the tour version, which is what I play with. It's a 98 square inch head. There's the regular 500. There's an LS, which is a slightly lighter spec. There's the light, which is, you know, coming in at 270 grams. And then we do have a 700, which is an oversized racket. It's a 107.
Okay.
So yeah, we're very excited about these. You know, there's some new technology in these rackets.
Can you touch a little bit on that? So these rackets are going to be more focused on, regardless of the swing style, but helping players generate some pop, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are some of the new, I guess, innovations? And so maybe you can go into a little bit about Srixon and their role. I think in some of the CX copy I saw back when those were launched, I guess Srixon's really helped out on the technical end with some of the technology you guys are using.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are a couple technologies that expand throughout all of our silos. One of them is Sonocore, made with Infinergy. It's actually the same stuff that's in the Adidas Boost shoe.
Oh, okay.
And so that is positioned in the 10 and 2 o'clock positions on the hoop. And what that does is it offers some dampening properties, and it also increases the power. So the FX does have Sonocore. Another string technology is the Power Grid String Tech, which is the way you could see on this. You kind of see the strings are tighter in the middle and a little more open up top, so that helps with power as well. And then the new technology,
so it'll help players like me that miss the sweet spot, and
right?
I can still get the ball in the court, right? That's the important thing.
Yeah, well, if you need help with that, you're going to love this next technology. So it's called Power Boost Groove. So it's an actual groove into the frame that is 1 millimeter wide and 0.5 millimeter deep. And what it does is when you make contact with the ball, that groove allows for grommet deformation, and that allows for string elongation, which increases power and increases the sweet spot. So it's very forgiving. And then, with this frame, we did go with a wider throat, so that increases stability. And then some really cool technology is it's called Flex Touch Resin, and it's in the layup in the throat, and it's a thermoplastic elastomer. And so what that does is increases rebound and increases comfort and power as well. And with more powerful rackets, stiffer rackets, this does come out at 70 on RA. Tends to be a little more uncomfortable, but with the Sonocore and with the Flex Touch Resin, this racket is very comfortable.
That's what I was going to ask, because I feel like in the past, not too distant past, a lot of the rackets with a higher RA number, like a high 60s or a 70s, they can be very powerful and offer a crisp feel, but they can also kind of lead to maybe some elbow issues. And it seems like Dunlop has really tried to address that with a firmer flexing racket, but maybe that Flex Touch Resin is the key to sort of keeping them playing comfortably.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. It's really quite comfortable.
Awesome. So what do you think in the last 5 years has been the biggest change technically for Dunlop? What do you think that they've really done, maybe most specifically with like the CX and the SX and the FX rackets?
Well, I think our partnership with Strixon has been key. We now have, Japanese engineering. So they've been able to really invest in research and developing new technologies like these. So, I think, that partnership has probably been the most important thing in the most recent years. I hope that answers your question to a certain degree.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm one of the playtesters for Tennis Express, and one of the things I was so impressed with, even the Kevin Anderson racket, and how different the current, the one with the Flying D cosmetic was over the last one. It's like I feel like that Infinergy, that the infusion of the Sonocore with Infinergy is really, I think, kind of opened my eyes, and the rackets played very comfortable. Same thing same thing with the SX rackets, just very comfortable, even at maybe a firmer flex. So we've got some people on here. Somebody says they've been playing Dunlop for 10 years and they're so happy. So just a brief reset here. Tennis Express fans out there, thanks for joining us. I'm Sam. I'm one of the playtesters at Tennis Express, and we're lucky enough today to have Keith Lloyd, the sales and marketing coordinator for Dunlop Sports.
Hey.
And he's here kind of educating us and talking to us about the new Dunlop FX series rackets. There's 5 of them. I believe it's the 500, 500 Tour, 500 LS, 500 light and 700.
That is correct.
Is that right? You can tell I've been writing some product descriptions. So I wanted to, if I could, go into some of the other interesting products that Dunlop has launched with the FX rackets, and really it's kind of a string question. And I saw that for this year, there's a couple of new offerings. It's explosive tour, explosive bite, and explosive speed. And I was wondering maybe if you could kind of give us a breakdown for which kind of players would want to try those strings, or just sort of maybe like a general overview of them.
Yeah, so that is correct. Those are the three that I've launched with the FX. The explosive bite is a 3-sided string. It is a very soft polyester, and it pockets the ball really well, which increases the projected angle off the racket. And being 3-sided, you're really able to create some RPMs. And then the speed is going to be a stiffer string. It's a lot more powerful. And then the tour is kind of a happy medium. It's a very comfortable poly that offers a lot of power. The tour and the speed are both round strings.
Okay. If I understand right, Keith, so like bite is going to be a little on the softer side.
Correct.
And then speed is more on the firm realm of things. And then tour is kind of that happy medium.
Exactly.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. I feel like there's such a variation now with polyester strings. About, maybe 15 years ago, every poly was like, oh, it's a poly and it feels like a poly. And now there's just a lot more engineering that goes into it, and one poly can be vastly different playing.
That is correct. Yeah.
That helps out a ton. Do you know offhand? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the tour comes in silver.
Okay.
The speed is available in black, blue that matches this, and a yellow that matches that racket. And then the bite comes in black and yellow. So there are some different color offerings.
I like the strings to match my racket.
Exactly.
I don't know about you. That's just kind of my jam. So I had a question in from a user. Chris wanted to know, what do you think? Are there any pros this summer? I know it's been kind of a weird, wild tennis year. Are there any pros on tour that are going to be playing the new FX rackets?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
Max Purcell, Jack Draper, Heather Watson, Wang Shang. There are a couple more players on tour, but they are playing with the FX racket.
Oh, fantastic. Well, they're really going to pop on TV. I've got to commend you guys to the if anybody out there has stenciled their own racket, there's something really cool about the new Dunlop design identity, where there's only one way to stencil it, and they've got almost like a little blueprint for how to do it. So they do look really slick, and the racket, the new Dunlop lines have been fantastic.
Thank you.
One of the questions, Keith, that we get a lot during our Q&As, actually here we got a question from Domitine Bamos. What's the difference between a 16-19 string pattern and an 18-by-20 string pattern? So I'll let you run with that one.
Yeah, so your traditional string pattern is 16-19. That's going to offer more ability to create power. An 18-20 is a much more dense string pattern, so it's more focused on control, but you're going to really have to bring the power yourself.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good information. I was going to say, one of the questions that we get a lot on our Q&As, and then even in our call center, is, my elbow's been barking at me a little bit. What's a good string that I can play that is going to really up the comfort level? So my question to you, Keith, is what if I'm shopping Dunlop string and I'm looking for supreme arm comfort, maybe I've had a little tennis elbow, what would you recommend out of the Dunlop catalog?
Yeah, so the softest string that we offer, the closest thing we have to a natural gut, is the Silk Pro.
Okay.
That's going to be the most comfortable string that we're going to be able to offer. And that comes in 16 and 17 gauge.
And that'll stretch and maybe it won't last as long, but it'll definitely help protect the arm, the elbow joint.
Right.
Fantastic. What about, let's see here. We talked about Sonic Core with Infinergy. We talked about the Power Groove. So I've noticed just in the past probably 6 to 12 months that Dunlop has really done some cool designs with their new tennis bags.
Yeah.
And I was kind of curious, like, how that came about. Like, the one in particular that I think is really interesting is kind of that commuter backpack.
Right. That's been very popular.
That's a little bit taller. And so you might not have one there, but for our consumers, it's basically a tennis backpack, but it's tennis backpacks have always had kind of that issue where the grip sticks out the top. And with these commuter backpacks that you guys have, the grips basically are completely covered and the rackets are covered. So, if you're throwing it on your bike and headed to the courts, they're completely protected. I was curious just kind of the thought process that goes into that. And they've been some really cool designs in tennis bags.
Yeah. So, it's interesting that bag is popular for tennis rackets. It's also popular just as luggage. I like to use it when I'm traveling because I can just take it on the plane with me. I don't have to check it. But we thought it was good to offer something a little more unique, something different that does cover the whole racket, and you can use it, like I said, multiple ways. You don't have to just use it for tennis.
Right, kind of has some crossover appeal.
Yeah, that's been our most popular bag.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's nice to see. I think sometimes tennis bags just end up with the same old design, and those really have a unique look to them. And like you said, they can kind of cross over to different things. I got another question for you here from Jakey, and he says, "Are there any Dunlop strings that are similar to ALU Power?"
So that's going to be that Explosive Tour.
Explosive Tour. Okay, interesting. Explosive Tour. Very cool. And then this is kind of a personal preference question maybe, but would you recommend, Domitin Bamos is wondering, would you recommend a vibration dampener for beginners?
That's really a personal choice. It does, I don't like to play without it. I've never liked to play without a vibration dampener. Some people like the feel without it, but most people do prefer that dampening noise and slight vibration dampening.
Right. See, I've always kind of gone, if I win and I have a vibration dampener in, then I'll keep the vibration dampener in. And if I have the vibration dampener in and I lose, then I have to remove it immediately.
That's a good way to go about it.
Okay, so we have another question here from Amara, and she says, what is the most maneuverable racket that Dunlop offers? And I'm assuming she means from a performance standpoint.
So the FX line is going to be the best for that. The swing weight on even the 500 Tour is 290. So, these are good of our line of rackets. These are going to be the most maneuverable. Probably the lightest in that line is the 700. It comes in at 265. Okay. And then the 500 light is 270. The LS is 285. The 500 is 300, and then the Tour is 305. So FX line is definitely going to be the most maneuverable.
Well, and so the SX rackets, they kind of have that aerodynamic beam, and so it almost looks like they would cut through the air a little bit faster, a little bit more aerodynamic as well.
They are. The swing weight's a little bit higher on the SX rackets, though. So yes and no.
Okay.
But just in terms of swing weight, I would say FX. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the SX is a more aero design. Interesting.
So what about a player? I know we're launching the FX rackets, but what about a player that says, man, I need a new racket, but I don't need help with power. where would you go? They're looking for power, or they're not looking for power, excuse me. They're looking for consistency, a little bit better stability, and they play with a large margin of error. What would you recommend there?
Definitely going into the CX line for that.
Okay.
It's smaller head size. The two tour rackets come in at 95 square inch head. The 200s are 98, and then the 400 is a 100 square inch. So those are definitely, your more traditional box frame, thinner beam, offers more control, but you're going to have to generate the power.
The one thing that shocked me about that CX series, even the tour models, the Kevin Anderson racket, the 18 by 20 pattern, and then the 16 by 19, is that I felt like even the 1820, it was easier to get spin out of that dense string bed than the previous version. Like I feel like that string spacing changed slightly, and I just remember being surprised that it was a dense pattern on a smaller racket, but I could still feel like I could generate some good topspin with it.
Yeah, that is the ultimate control racket. That's a lot of racket.
Well, and then it was also nice to see you guys did that CX 200 Plus, which is the slightly longer rackets, and the mid 90s that got real big, the longer rackets, but it's a heavy swing weight frame, but for players that need a little bit of extra reach and can get the racket going, that's a very impressive model.
Yeah, you want to make sure you have some unique rackets in there, with the extended version, and it is the players who do use it tend to only use that, even when they're looking for a new racket. So it is a good option to have.
And it opens y'all up. If you have a longer one, then at least people can kind of look, okay, Dunlop's got one of those longer ones, and that puts you in that category. We had a question here. Who's the highest ranked Dunlop player? Is it? I know Kevin Anderson's been injured. Is he still up there?
I'd have to check on his ranking. Long Shang's our highest ranked female at the moment.
Okay.
And top 30. But we do have a lot of young players that we've signed recently that are working their way up.
Well, I know Donald Young and Taylor Townsend. I saw Taylor Townsend last night playing some impressive doubles on World Team Tennis with her Dunlop CX. I'm not sure which model she plays. Do you happen to know?
I believe she plays with the 200.
Oh, okay.
Correctly.
So if I get that racket, I can volley like Taylor Townsend.
Well, as long as you put the stencil in correctly and you have your vibration dampener.
Exactly right. Let's see here. Again, just wanted to reset. I've got Keith Lloyd here today for the sales and marketing coordinator for Dunlop Sports. Thanks for joining us, all of the viewers at Tennis Express. He's kind of answering some general Dunlop questions, but we're kind of focusing on the new FX rackets. So if you have any questions out there for Keith, he's going to know everything under the sun Dunlop, and I'm sure just about everything under the sun rackets and strings. So Keith, if you don't mind, I kind of have a tennis ball question for you. It seems like Dunlop's really made a push in the ball market, the official ball now of the Australian Open. Has that, can you talk about kind of how that came about and how are the tennis balls doing in the United States?
We are the #1 ball on tour. And, it really came about when we partnered with Strixon. We own our own factory. So, we have, Sumitomo Rubber Industries. I mean, they are that, rubber company,
right?
Essentially. And so we have higher level quality materials, higher quality control because we do own the factory. So we're able to produce a ball that performs more consistently than the competition. And, we are constantly adding ATP events. Our ball business has done really well, especially with the development of the ATP ball, the extra duty and regular duty ball.
Talk a little bit about that. So you have the Australian Open ball, and then you have another premium ball, right? And that's the ATP
That is
Tour.
the
Is that right?
ATP. Yeah, it's the ATP ball that comes in regular duty and extra duty.
Okay.
And then we have the Grand Prix ball. We kept that, which is a premium ball as well. It's not quite a super premium, but that is regular duty and extra duty. And then we do offer a champ ball. That's the ATP champ. That is regular duty and extra duty as well. And even, I mean, it is a champ ball, but even though it's a champ ball, it performs really well, especially against the competition.
In my lifetime, I've seen lots of teaching carts full of Grand Prix tennis balls. Very popular
Yes,
teaching basketball.
that
Let's
is
see here.
true.
We got another question for you. Oh, here's a good one. Kimberly wants to know, what string do you recommend for the new FX 500? Another loaded question for you.
Yeah, so that's personal preference. You know, some higher level players can play with a full bed of poly and be fine. What's popular now is the hybrid. Usually people will go with a polyester in the mains just because the mains tend to wear out a little bit more, and that poly is more durable than a multi-filament. And then, they'll do polys in the mains and multi in the crosses for a little more comfort. Personally, I play with a full bed of multi-filament. I like the silk spin. Extra pop. It's a 6-sided string, so it really bites the ball. It really that is kind of a loaded question, but I would say, because of your level, you could go with full poly, or that, like I said, that hybrid is popular, or full bed of multi is probably the safest choice.
What would you say, like, I mean, way back when I'm starting tennis, whatever shop I'd go into, I'd say, I need this strung, and they'd go, how tight? And I'd be like, 60 pounds, just very high in that
Yeah.
range. And I have certainly come down from that now, just with the different strings and materials. What
Mm-hmm.
would be your tension recommendation? Maybe just go by racket family. Like, for instance, what would be your tension range for those CX rackets that are a little more control oriented?
So you have to consider how big the head size is when
Okay.
you're looking at tension. You don't really want to go with a high tension in a 95 square inch head. That's going to be very uncomfortable and could potentially cause some injury.
Okay.
So, my recommendation just generally is, for polyesters, don't go above 50 pounds. That's just a general rule of thumb.
Right.
If I do hit with a poly, like, when we get the new strings in, I want to test everything out,
Right.
I threw in the poly in this racket at 42 pounds. Now, multi-filament, I would go tighter than that just because the added power from the string. I string this with 55 pounds with the
Okay.
full bed of multi. So, like I said, it kind of depends on the frame. If the head size is a little bit bigger, you could go a little bit tighter. It's going to be a little more forgiving in terms of comfort and potential injury. But if you're going in those, mid plus 95, 98, you want to really, especially if you're in poly, really drop the tension, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like that's been a big change just in the last 15, 20 years. I remember them talking about Sampras stringing in the 70s with that
Oh, yeah.
natural gut, and now it just seems like more and more of those stringing slips that you see on social media from these big tournaments, and it's like 48, 46,
Oh, yeah.
50
I mean,
pounds. It's wild.
I know a couple pro players who are in the 30s
Wow.
with their poly.
Man, that is some control right there. You can almost hand pull that right on the machine.
Right?
You don't actually have to use the machine. You can just use your
Yeah.
hands. I had another question here for you. Let's see. I might have just lost it. Oh, here it is. How often should a recreational player restring? So, person here says that they're playing once. sorry, they're playing once a week. Sorry, they're playing 5 hours a week. Excuse me.
Okay.
So what do you think is a good kind of, we get this question a lot too, so I'm kind of curious what you think.
So, the gentleman who taught me how to string said, the general rule of thumb is however many times you play in a week, that's how many times a year you should get your racket restrung. That general rule of thumb, I mean, it's really, if you're playing with a full bed of polyester, that's going to lose its tension a lot quicker than a multi-filament. And what's going to happen is if you've got those strings in there for a long time, the dynamic tension is really going down, and you're having to adjust your swing to get the ball in. So
Right.
you're really having to change your game for the string. I think it depends on the string. It also depends on how many times you play. That's trying to think of.
I think it's tough. It's tough because, and I talk with customers about it as well. You think I'm going to get my racket restrung, and it's good until it breaks. And the reality, the analogy I try to use is that, you don't drive your car 50,000 miles past time to change the oil.
Exactly.
There's going to be stuff going on inside that car that are not working right that you're causing because you haven't changed the oil. And so I think sometimes just because a string isn't broken doesn't mean that it's necessarily performing at its best for you.
Exactly.
So that's a big thing. And then like you mentioned with a polyester string, it's not breaking, but it's really dropped so much, and you don't ever want to, especially in a pressure situation, try to change your mechanics to keep the ball in the court. That's kind of a tough ask. Let's see. Jut Jackson says, what about 97 square inch head with a hybrid of natural gut mains and poly in the crosses? I'm not sure if he's referring to tension or if that can be done.
I'm reading that as referring to tension.
Okay.
You don't want the natural gut to be the same tension as the poly. I would say, depending on the poly, if it's for me, I'd go, 50, 53, 54 for the mains, and probably 46, 47 for the crosses.
Okay.
But that's something. There's no right answer. It's
right.
It's personal preference, but that would be my recommendation.
That's a good starting point, I think. The danger being, you go in there and you say, I want the gut at 70 pounds, and then the poly at 50 pounds, and that might waste you a set of gut.
Oh yeah,
right there. So yes, that's really good advice. Again, fans out there, thanks for tuning in to another Tennis Express Q&A. We've got Keith Lloyd, the sales and marketing coordinator for Dunlop Sports. So let's get a last call here for any more questions about the new Dunlop racket line, or really any racket sports tension questions. Keith's here to help us out today. Keith, you touched on something a little bit ago, and it was about a string, and I think you said it was a multi-filament, but it was shaped.
Yes.
What was that string?
Silk spin.
Okay, so it's silk spin. That's pretty unique, right? It
is. There are not a lot of shaped strings in the market. I believe Gamma has an option. I think there might be one or two others, but it's a really unique item, and I love it. Like I said, that's what I prefer to play with. It's a multi, so it's super comfortable, extra pop, and then it's shaped, so you do get some bite on the ball.
Yeah, I always thought that was kind of interesting. There's in polys, there's tons of different square shaped,
mm-hmm.
3-sided, 4-sided, 5-sided, all these different pentagonal. And I think silk spin is a very interesting string because it's got that comfort, but it also maybe helps you get a little bit more grab.
Yeah.
grab on the ball. Let's see here. Does Dunlop still manufacture racing tires? That's a good one.
Um, I believe they do in a different division from Dunlop Sports Group of Americas.
We
But
need to open it up and ask you a bunch of very technical tire questions,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
yeah. I don't know if I would be able to answer any of those at all.
So this one's going to take you back a little bit. We've got a player that plays with the M3.1. What new Dunlop would be the most comparable?
I would say that is a throwback. It's not the frame shape is not your box frame, so I would not go with the CX. I would
Okay.
try, the SX 300 or the FX 500.
Okay. Very nice. I'm trying to. I can't picture that frame that they're referring to, but it sounds familiar. I just can't. I can't picture quite what it
Yeah,
is.
it was in line, kind of with the biomimetic line. I think it was right. It was either right before that or right after that. I can't remember the timeline.
Cool. Well, Keith, I got one more question for you, and you may or may not be able to answer it, but I know you guys are launching the FX rackets. Again, they're in stock at Tennis Express. They're shipping today. Is there anything on the horizon? It sounds like you guys are trying to get more ATP partners for tennis balls, but anything big coming soon from Dunlop Racket Sports?
Well, yeah, we're always in the process of developing new equipment, new items. There are a couple things in the pipeline. Not quite ready to release any names of anything yet, but I mean, you can see, based on what we've done with the CX, SX, FX, and control, spin, force, and then also our numbering system 200, 300, 400, 500, and as the number gets bigger, the racket is more powerful. So I mean, you can see the direction in which we're going. And like I said, there are some things in the works, but we're not quite ready to announce anything new yet.
Fair enough. I had to ask.
Yeah,
I had
I
to put you on
understand.
the spot. You never
Yeah.
know. You might say, "Oh yeah, we've got this coming," in 6 months. But no, I totally get it. Well, that's going to do it for us. So thank you, tennis fans out there, for watching. Again, the Dunlop FX rackets in stock at Tennis Express, and they're shipping today. We've got a great demo program at Tennis Express, so if you're curious, check it out. Keith, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your expertise on all things Dunlop.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope I was able to provide some good information for your customers.
Absolutely. Everybody have a great weekend out there, okay?